Despite the rise of the SUV, the C-Class continues to be Mercedes' best-selling international model. No pressure then for this 5th generation W206 series version, which fully embraces various forms of engine electrification and brings more than a dash of S-Class luxury to this important segment.
Mercedes has decided that this 5th generation C-Class should be a little more engaging and, in its own words, significantly more electric, and that's pretty much what you get here. Push on a little around secondary road twists and turns and you'll discover that the car feels a little lighter and more agile than before. The steering's that bit more accurate, the grip is that bit more tenacious. Is it BMW 3 Series like? Well, not quite, but in terms of handling feedback, this C has been lifted well clear of what used to be its most dynamically comparable rival, Audi's A4. The firm lowered sport suspension that most models have to have delivers excellent body control, but the downside of that is an unsettled ride over bumpy surfaces, which you can't do anything about because adaptive damping isn't an option for our market. From launch, the all-wheel steering and 4MATIC four-wheel drive systems available on Continental models weren't being offered here either. All the engines this time around are just 4 cylinders in size. Yes, even the one beneath the bonnet of the Mercedes-AMG C63 flagship model, which is now a plug-in hybrid with over 600 horsepower on tap. More relevant are the mainstream models we're focusing on here, all of which feature 48-volt mild hybrid assistance and drive the rear wheels through a 9-speed auto gearbox. The C180 and C200 variants use a relatively humble 1.5 litre petrol engine, offered respectively in 170 and 204 horsepower states of tune. The alternative is a 2 litre petrol power plant, and that features in 258 HP form in a C300 or with 313 horsepower in the C300E. Now that is a PHEV plug-in that can take you up to 62 miles on battery power, almost doubling the previous generation plug-in model's range. Diesels are still popular amongst C-Class folk, so Mercedes continues to offer the 2 litre OM654 series unit we're testing here, offered with 200 horsepower in the C220D, and that returns up to 61.4 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 120 grams of CO2. Here though, we've been trying the C300D, and that uses the same engine in 265 horsepower form. So, what do you think? This could only be a small Mercedes. There's plenty of E-Class in the genes of this 5th generation W206 series design and cues too from the even larger S-Class sedan. Here we're focusing on the saloon and estate C-Class variants that most will want, both deceptively curvy and both significantly larger than before. A previous owner will notice that from the side, this saloon model's 65mm longer than before, and perhaps more significantly, it's 42mm longer than a competing BMW 3 Series. Either way, there's a bit more pavement presence this time around, thanks to a slightly sleeker roofline, which has reduced height by 9 mils. It's very E-Class-like at the front. It's characterised as usual by the brand's hallmark radiator grille, which will look quite different and much less arresting if you attempt to save an insignificant amount and opt for entry-level sport trim. The various AMG line models get, as here, these twinkling chrome pins around the central 3-pointed star, and a much more dynamic-looking AMG lower bumper, air intake and lower splitter design. The rear gets an uplift with the AMG line trim levels too. The bumper gains these high gloss chrome elements, a more potent design and more prominent exhaust apertures too, which might make folk think that you've stretched up to one of the sportier Mercedes-AMG variants. Now, no car in this class has ever felt quite as upmarket as this. It really does feel like the luxurious cabin of a larger car, specifically the S-Class, which uses much the same kind of twin-screen arrangement. In this case, an 11.9-inch central multimedia colour display for infotainment and a customisable 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster for the drive gauges. get settled in and other freshly evolved details start to present themselves. The 3 spherical jet engine style circular vents just above the infotainment monitor, the leather stitched wheel with its unusual twin bar horizontal spokes, and the cleverly sculpted door cards. They have unusual concave shaping and floating style silver trimmed handle panels. It all makes the cabins you get in competitor models feel very last generation. Not everything feels as good to use as it looks. The vents, for example, the tiny steering wheel, touch-sensitive buttons take a bit of getting used to, and there are some brittle plastics here and there, but the standard leather seats are properly supportive. There's plenty of stowage space, and the trimming, as here, can be exquisite. Okay. Let's take a look at the rear seat, which offered rather cramped quarters in the previous generation model, and that's presumably why Mercedes has extended the wheelbase by 25mm this time around. Well, the result is an improvement in cabin space, but not as much as we'd hoped. Stats say that legroom is up by 21mm, elbow room by 15mm, and headroom by about 12, but you'll still feel more comfortable in, say, an Audi A4. As usual in this class, it's perfectly comfortable for 2 passengers, unless they're really tall, but a real squash for 3, the further impediment here being this prominent transmission tunnel. Finally, to the boot, given this Mark V model's length increase, we were surprised to find the cargo area no bigger than before. It's 455 litres in size with the saloon. Although it's shorter, the alternative estate body style is still able to up the trunk capacity to 490 litres. We really like these useful corner seat back retraction catches too. Activate them in the estate and 1510 litres of capacity can be freed up. In summary, it used to be easy to pigeonhole buyers amongst the 3 main protagonists in the sector: a 3 Series for the driving enthusiast, an A4 for the technophile, and a C-Class as a compromise badge equity choice. This Mercedes is now a great deal more than that though. It blurs those boundaries, and it makes your choice in this segment just that little bit more pleasantly difficult.